the town planner for North Attleboro. I'm actually going to turn it over to Marie Klarner because she is the chair of the master plan committee. So Marie, the floor is yours.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. After I introduce a couple of people, I'm going to pass it over to Eric, introduce our team from Serpide. But first, I'd like to introduce you to the members of the master plan committee. We have Lyle Perney, who is our economic development director. Laurel Racine, if you want to give a little wave. Lisa Ryan. Is that it for the master plan committee? And me. We really appreciate you giving your time tonight to help North Attleboro decide what to do for the future. So Eric, if you want to talk about your team from Serpide.
Sure, thank you, Marie. As Marie said, we're with Serpide. My name is Eric Arbini, and I'm here joined by my colleagues Taylor Perez, Sarah Brown, and Jed Cornock, who will meet a little later. I'm going to start with a brief presentation before we get into some breakout groups. If you could bear with me for a moment, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can everybody see my screen? Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thank you. So yes, North Attleboro Master Plan. That's what we're here to talk about tonight. It is usually these are done in person, but due to the ongoing pandemic, they're virtual. We had one on Monday night, and we're having one tonight, and we're talking about land use, housing, and economic development in the town of North Attleboro. So this is in the form, this presentation is in the form of a story map, which might look a little different than a traditional PowerPoint presentation. I should note that this this story map presentation will be available on the website after the meeting, and you can come in and take a look at it at your leisure. We'll go through it tonight. There's some maps and some interactive activities you could take part in. Before we start, I wanted to let everybody know that the meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the North Attleboro Master Plan website. This meeting is on Zoom, obviously. Closed captioning is available. During the presentation, if you could remain muted and turn off your video, that'd be great. We'll have a chance when we get into the breakout rooms. We want to hear from you. We'll have everybody turn on the cameras, and we want to hear from what the folks in town have to say. We have a raise hand feature. If you're having any types of issues, we have four people here. Please use the chat, and either Taylor, Sarah, or Jed could help you out as we'll be monitoring it. If you're joining by phone, I don't think anybody is, but you can use *6 to mute and unmute, and *9 to raise your hand. In the event we have any inappropriate behavior or a Zoom bombing issue, we'll shut down the meeting and then restart it using the same link. We've been lucky and haven't had any issues with that. So tonight's agenda, just a quick overview, welcome and introductions. We'll do an overview of what a master plan is if you're new to the process here. Takeaways from our discovery workshop that we held back in February. Also, we'll go over some survey results. You may have taken a survey back in January, February. We had over 860 folks respond, so we'll share some of those results. We'll go over a few land use and housing maps and past planning goals in town. And lastly, breakout rooms and questions to consider. And that's what we'll talk about. We really want to hear from you folks tonight. We're going to give you some information to kind of keep in mind during these conversations, but this presentation should last about 15 minutes. So the project team, the master plan committee, Marie introduced many of the folks here. Marie is the chairperson, Jen Carloni, the town planner, Dave Tinnery, Bill Blaze, Lyle Perney, Laura Racine, and Lisa Ryan. Some of the folks were here Monday night. They're not here tonight. Both workshops, I should note, were the same. It's the same content, same presentation. We'll have the same conversations. We did it 2 nights to give folks flexibility. If they could make one night, they can make another night. And then Serpide, the team here, myself, Sarah, and Taylor are the project leads. Our contact information is there as well. So Serpide, what's Serpide? Serpide is the Southeastern Regional Planning and Economic Development District, and we're the town's regional planning agency. You can see we go by the acronym Serpide. Didn't want to say that every time I answered the phone. That's a mouthful. So we're acting as the town's consultant. So our role here is to listen to you, conduct outreach with all town stakeholders, members of the public, different committees, boards, department heads, gather and analyze a lot of data and information. Tonight, we're here to gather information from members of the public, from department heads, folks in town, people who work in town, business owners. Using that information and the data we gather to establish goals and priorities for the master plan. And finally, craft the master plan that creates a path to achieve your goals. So trying to get all this information to help the town define its goals and priorities, and then create a roadmap, if you will, to achieve those goals. So the project timeline, you can see we're here, spring 2021. Again, we're talking about land use, how the town and land is used, housing and economic development. We had our discovery workshop in the wintertime. We're going to be doing a housing production plan. That's a plan based to develop additional affordable housing in town. And you can see our next set of workshops will be in the fall. We'll talk about open space and recreation and natural and cultural resources. And we'll have additional workshops next winter. And the final report will be done in summer of 2022. These plans do take a fair amount of time because there's a lot of information to be gathered. The report will be completed at the end. I don't have a definitive number of pages it will have. We haven't written it yet, but it's usually 100 to 120 pages. But we create it and craft it in a way that's easy to read and it's not full of planner jargon, I guess you'd say. So I mentioned that the discovery workshop, we had just like this in a virtual format, and we had people, we posed a series of questions. What would you like the town to look like in 10 years, feel like in 10 years? As you know, the title of the project is North Attleboro Master Plan 2030. So it's important to keep in mind that we're looking at what you would like the town to look like, feel like in 2030. So we asked people land use, how would you like the land developed or not developed in a certain way? Kind of the major takeaways in terms of land use were to utilize the limited amount of commercially developable land left. There's not a lot of commercially developable land, and to use that to create development that's compatible with the community's character. And secondly, it was to continue to support the development of the downtown into a destination. The downtown is a real gem in town, and folks really like it, and they want to bring it to that next level. In terms of housing, there was support to create additional affordable housing units in order to meet the requirements of Chapter 40B, which is a state law that requires towns to have a certain amount of subsidized affordable housing in town. If they don't, developers can bypass local regulations to create that housing. We can get into that later during the conversation if anybody has any questions. And then the secondly was to create housing options that allow for seniors to age in place. People who are here, they may have lived in the house a long time, a larger house, they want to downsize, but there's no place to go in town. So creating more options for folks who are aging in town. And lastly, economic development, again, support the redevelopment of the downtown, encouraging desirable development and improving amenities, sidewalks, benches, cultural events, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of support for the downtown. Downtown, like we said, is a gem, and folks really like it and they want to bring it to that next level. And secondly was address the future of the Emerald Square Mall. Like many malls in the region, is struggling. So I said we would mention some of the survey results. So we're going to highlight 3 of the questions that have to do with land use, housing, and economic development. So one of the questions we asked in the survey is, what land use changes would you like to see in North Attleboro in the next 10 to 20 years? So we gave folks a bunch of different options. They could write in things, but the number one option, or the number one answer, was to strengthen the vibrancy of the downtown. Again, so we're seeing a lot of folks in support of a more vibrant downtown, a more active downtown. The downtown is active, but again, taking it to that next level. A lot of also support for more recreational areas in open space and preservation of lands in town. There was also a lot of support for the revitalization of the mall. Other answers included, we saw a lot of support for dog parks, bike paths, sidewalks, that sort of thing. So another question we asked is, what type of housing should be encouraged in North Attleboro? What kind of housing would people like to see in town? And overwhelming majority were single family homes on both large lots and small lots, which is not uncommon. That's mostly what the town consists of, and I'm going to show you a map in a few minutes to kind of get a better idea. But we also did see a lot of support for townhouses, duplex condos, assisted living facilities, different types of housing. So that was interesting. And like I said, we'll be doing a housing plan, and there'll be a housing part of this plan as well that'll look at potentially opportunities for additional types of housing in town. And the last survey question we wanted to share with you are, what should North Attleboro's top economic development priorities be over the next 10 years? Again, the overwhelming majority was to attract and support small businesses. Coincidentally, that's what makes up a good proportion of the downtown businesses, small businesses. A lot of also support for enhanced arts and cultural amenities in town, and then small scale industrial businesses. So I'm going to move on to some workshop maps. So looking at these maps, and you folks in the audience or anybody will be able to go and look at these maps. So land use is how the land in town is currently being used. So you see a bunch of different colors on this map, and right over here in the bottom left-hand corner, there's a legend that kind of makes sense of what all these colors mean. And you can see there's a lot of yellow on the map. And the yellow are, land that's being used for residences that are smaller than 3 units, basically single-family homes for the most part. And you can see that a majority of the town, a good part of it is single-family homes. Actually, we have a little graph right here. About 44% of the land in town is used for single-family and two-family homes. The next color you see the most often is blue, and blue is institutional use. Institutional uses are land that's owned by the town, land that's owned by maybe a church or a nonprofit, a cemetery, it could be parks, school land, town-owned land, town halls on, that sort of thing. And then you'll see some green, those are open space and recreation areas. You'll see purple. Over here, you see the industrial park, and then you see red. Red is commercial, and you can kind of see that with the Emerald Square Mall along Route 1. And what you can do too is, I know folks, at least I do, folks like to see where they live, and you can take that. Sorry, just bear with me here. And you can zoom in on this using on the right-hand corner here. There is a zoom in, zoom out, so you can get really into parcel levels. You see all these little lines, these are everybody's parcels, and you can see the street names, and you can see all this information. You can see all the different types of land uses in town. It'll take a minute or two to load. You can zoom in and out. And again, we have a little write-up on the side here. Sorry. So, and this information is based on assessors data. Again, this is not zoning. This is just the way the land is being used according to the assessors database. Community priority areas. Community priority areas, it was kind of born out of the South Coast Rail project, the idea to bring commuter rail down to the South Coast. As part of it, the MBTA and the MassDOT, they allowed a bunch of towns to look at, we did studies back in 2008, and then they redid them in 2013, and went to towns, and Serpent was part of this, and went to the town and said, hey, where are your priority areas in terms of development and preservation? What's the real focus of town? It's a good planning document, planning practice. You can see the purple, and using the legend, are areas that the town wanted to focus on for development. You can see the mall, you can see Route 1, you can see the downtown. You can also see the area up by 152 in Plainville. And then you can see areas that the town would really like to protect and focus protection on. And a lot of that is in the western part of town where it's a little more rural. And again, you can zoom in on this map and zoom out. And again, this is a good thing to keep in mind when we're talking about it. This was last done in 2013. Priorities change. I'd be curious to hear what folks, if these are still relevant and still the priorities of the community. Housing. So housing, this is another map that shows the types of housing in town. As you can see, I'm gonna we have a little, again, a little legend here to tell you what all these different colors mean. So the lightest yellow is single family housing, which again, we can see covers the majority of the town. And according to this, it's about 88% of the town, the housing in town is single family residential. And if you've driven around town, comes as no surprise to you. The second most popular are apartments and condos, followed by 2-family and 3-family residential units. And you can see most of it outside of the downtown is single family. You get closer into the downtown, there's more of a variety of types. And again, you can take this and you can scroll in, you can zoom in, and you can see where these types of housing, this type of housing is done on a parcel level. And zoom back out there. So last but not least is zoning. And zoning is very important to, not only North Attleboro, but every community. And that says how land can be developed. You just can't, if you have 2 acres of land out in the western part of town, you couldn't build a store there because it's against the rules. And zoning are rules for how land can be developed. And North Attleboro has a bunch of different zoning districts. The majority of them are residential. And you can see for instance, this kind of tannish color in here, it's single family residential 15 or R15. And that basically, the 15 part is a minimum lot size of 15,000 square feet. There's an R20 district, that would be a minimum size of 20,000 square feet. And single residential 40 as R40 is a minimum of 40,000 square feet in area. There's also zoning for commercial. You can kind of see down here along where the mall is on Route 1 and through the downtown. We see over here at the industrial park, this is zoned industrial, where industrial uses go. Again, it separates uses. There were also a transit-oriented development district right here in the downtown, where you want a mix of uses. You want some residential, commercial on the first floor, residential on the second, like a traditional downtown. And then at the edges of the town are aquifer protection districts, and that limits development in certain ways because it protects the town's water resources, drinking water resources. So again, this is the zoning as it is in place now. But again, when we're talking about and when we're posing questions in these breakout rooms, it's really to understand what the town would like or what you would like to see 10 years from now. Zoning can change, land uses can change. So it's really opening up your mind to see what would you like to see in 10 years. It may not always be reality, but the town is interested in seeing it because the town is going to continue to grow. And the more input that they have from residents and the more people who support the different types of changes, if that's a result of this, they can make those changes to satisfy folks. So a few more before I stop talking. So what we did, the town has done a lot of planning. The last master plan was done in 2014. They've done hazard mitigation plans to identify hazards in town. Recently did an open space plan. So while this master plan covers a bunch of different areas, we're not disregarding past plans. We're taking those into account as well. That was good work and we don't want to discard it. We want to incorporate it into this plan. So some of the past land use goals encourage sound and environmentally sustainable balance between residential and commercial and the environment. So development in a responsible manner. Preserve the rural character of the residential areas in the northwestern portion of town where it's rural. And then develop stormwater management bylaws, wetlands protection bylaws, protect the environment. And that can be done through a series of bylaws. Housing, this is kind of what we referred at the last workshop, the discovery workshop, provide a range of housing options to meet folks of all income levels and more affordable housing, especially for younger professionals and senior citizens. And lastly, economic development, create a sustainable mix of businesses capable of withstanding economic downturns. That was in 2014. That's pretty relevant now, obviously, with COVID. Revise zoning bylaws to encourage growth where it's appropriate, and then expand opportunities to redevelop underutilized buildings into mixed-use projects. And the town does have a fair amount of older factories buildings that are being cleaned up or in the process of being cleaned up and could be redeveloped. So we're going to move to the next stage in the plan in the program tonight. So when we go to this open chat, some questions to consider. Keep in mind. Again, try to keep in mind that 10 years from now, are there specific places in town you want to see redevelopment? Whatever's there, that's great, but I'd really like to see this. Or would you like to see other type of growth, businesses, more manufacturing? Where would you like to see them? What types would you like to see? Is there a specific type of housing missing in town? We really need more condos, or we need more 55 plus housing. If you could make zoning changes, what and where would they be? We would like to expand the industrial zone, or we'd like more commercial activity, or we'd like less commercial activity and more residential activity. Those are some questions to consider tonight. And at any time, you can visit the master plan website, which has a wealth of information. You can call or text our listening line. We can leave a comment or email us, or we're also on Facebook, which we try to spread the word. And in regards to that, I appreciate you coming out here tonight and spending time with us. But if you could help us spread the word, the more input we get and the more folks that participate in the process, the better the plan will be as we develop it. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And folks, feel free to turn on your screens if you'd like, and unmute yourselves if you'd like. Before we move to the next stage, this open discussion, did anybody have any questions? I knew I threw a lot of information at you. There's a lot of data, a lot of information. Probably have a lot of questions. Are there any I can answer at the moment?
I don't have any.
Eric, I just want to note that I think there may be some individuals who might have to drop off the meeting this evening. All of the workshops are recorded and will be posted on the website, and all the materials, there's going to be some interactive mapping and some surveys this evening, and those will be available also on the master plan website after the meeting. So for anybody who's unable to be here the whole night, they can do that later on, or also you can let people know who weren't able to attend that they can do that after the meeting.
And if you want to contact us individually, in the presentation, our contact information is there. If you want to email us individually or call us, we're more than happy to accommodate folks that way as well. Did anybody have a question before moving to the next slide? Was that Lyle?
Yeah, I think the elephant in the room may be Emerald Square Mall, and there is a lot of activity going on between mall receivership managers and me and other people in town government. I wish I could discuss what's going on in an open sense, but a lot of it involves other companies and is therefore confidential. But we're doing everything we possibly can to mall become as robust an entity, my concern, a tax revenue paying entity as possible. We have meetings with them almost every day to talk about things that are happening in detail. So I don't know how much of that we could get into in master plan meetings, but as I said, there's a tremendous amount of activity going on.
Thanks, Lyle. And yeah, I know there's things that folks can't talk about, but folks do want to we encourage folks to talk about the possible redevelopment of the mall. Again, what could look like in 10 years from now. Could be totally something different. It could be what's going on there now, or what plans are being done. But I think having people talk about it and hearing what people have to say or what they would like to see there is always helpful as well. So don't let that. We still want to hear about what folks have to say.
Can I ask one quick question about that I haven't heard addressed? Is the North Attleboro Fish Hatchery still working, or is that in the mix here, or no?
Well, the fish hatchery is still there. The federal government still runs it. The federal government still raises, farms fish there. As a matter of fact, one of the things they do is raise trout. Past few years, they release some of those trout into Whiting's Pond here in North Attleboro. So it's still an active fish hatchery.
Good. So it's federal government, so it's not anything that we could influence or
No, we have no control
order. Yeah.
over that.
Okay. Thank you.
Good evening. I have a question as well.
Sure, yeah, Darius, thank you.
So my question is about what was the sample size of the survey relative to the town's population? Do we have numbers on how many people actually took the survey?
So we had 866 responses. I want to note that this was not a scientific survey. It was open to anybody who wanted to take it. We didn't, it wasn't like a political survey where you ask how many people who's going to vote for who. So that should be made clear that it wasn't a political survey. Again, it was 866 respondents. It could be people who live in town. It could be town officials. It could be people who work in town who aren't residents who took it, business owners, that sort of thing. And the population of the town is approximately 28,000 people.
Right.
So, we were pretty happy with that turnout. Obviously, if we had 5,000 responses, that'd be even better. But that's the numbers we had.
Thank you.
As of today, 29,364. I looked at the census.
All right, 29,000. Thanks, Miles.
I would just like to note that it was comparable to the open space plan that we recently did. We got about the same response rate for both. There was, I think, 900 on the open space plan, and this one got about 866, I think is what Eric said. And I believe when we checked the data, it was the makeup was comparable to the area in terms of like age ranges, the demographic information we had. I mean, it's not perfect, it's not going to be exact, but there was a decent, comparable looking of the community.
Thank you, Jen.
Did anybody else have a question before we move to the next?
Eric, I think it was Darius that wants to know where the raise your hand slip is.
I'm just
You
going to
wanna
note for the
tell
Serped team, not all of us have that. I realized that on our last meeting. Not all of us have that reaction. It's in the reactions on the right-hand side, but feel free to use any of the reactions. I don't think we all have the raise hand one.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But it's on the bottom of the screen, everyone.
Yeah.
And it's a thing called reactions. If you click that, some people get a raised hand, not all of us, but you can use any of those reactions that apply and we'll know that you're trying to tell us something.
Yeah, I know this. I think there's a thumbs up one or a happy face or party.
Yeah. On mine, the raise hand is a bar across the bottom. It's not up in with the icons. It's or emojis. It's across the bottom. So I
Thank
don't know how that's determined. But yeah, you're right. Whatever. We might get a good laugh out of the choices that some people make for looking to raise their hand.
Was there any other questions?
Are you going to split us up into two groups or do one group again?
I think we're going to do one group tonight.
Okay.
We're going to do one group as we did the other night, and encourage everybody to contribute.
Okay.
And again, I know we don't have a ton of time, but if there's anything that you would like to do after the fact, again, our contact information is there. I'm more than happy to talk to you and take comments. But I'm going to, Sarah, could you share your screen? My colleague Sarah Brown's going to share her screen. And what you see here is obviously a map of North Attleboro. And on this program, we have three different maps here. There's a land use map, there's a housing map, and then there's an economic development map. And Sarah, could you walk them through how this works?
We'll share this link to this mapping exercise after the meeting.
Yes.
How to do it is for land use, we would like to know where you guys would like to see land use changes. So these are some of the points we put down on Monday night. And to do it, you would just click the add comment, select your category. So what type of land use change you would like to see. So say we'll just do mixed use, and then you can zoom in to the area. And then for this one, we'll put a polygon. So you'll just click, and then at the end you double click, and it will place your polygon, and then you'll put your comment. If you add in your name or email, that will stay anonymous. And if you mess up the polygon, you can either click cancel, or you can just start redrawing it before you hit the report it button. For the other two maps, we have housing and economic development, and these will put a point on the map. So for economic development, you just click it. They have the same thing. They have a category. You'll click your category, and then you'll put the point on the map. And we have a video also on here to show you how to use it, and a little introduction. So the video link is here, and then my contact information is here. So if you have any trouble using this.
That we're going to be talking about this tonight. We're going to be taking comments. We're going to incorporate them into the map so you can see, but we're going to leave this mapping exercise open, you know, for an indefinite period of time where people can go in and make comments. And as Sarah showed you, you can go in and make a comment. You don't have, even if you put your information, it's not going to be shown. There's ways to like a comment if you're on there, just like Facebook. I think everyone's familiar with Facebook. There are some comments there already. If somebody already has your comment, like, oh, you know, look at the zoning along Route 1. You could give it a heart, and that's, you know, I like that. It's kind of seconding it. You know, the more we see of that, it's people like, oh yeah, that's good. We're seeing a theme there. Or if you have a comment on it, you can leave a reply like, no, I think that's great. So there's a lot of different attributes to this. So it's really a neat way to do it. You can actually you can zoom in just like the other maps we showed. You can zoom out. You can see what other people have left. And there is a legend. Sorry, you can pop the legend over there. So you can see what all these different colors mean. Just like we kind of talked about before, we have a bunch of different, you know, in land use, we're talking about, you know, oh, that's open space. Oh, that's a great, I like open space there. Or I think there should be more commercial development in the downtown or whatnot. Jed just mentioned in the chat there, we have an electronic comment card on our website as well. And Jed put the link to it there too. If you just have a general comment and you don't want to use this, that's absolutely fine to use as well. Thanks, Jed. So in terms of this, you know, we're going to be talking about these three topics tonight. And again, this is going to be open. We're going to advertise it. Make sure people come here, leave comments either here or, you know, on the electronic comment card. But to open up, kind of kick off the discussion tonight, we could talk about any one of these three topics tonight. We'll be discussing other topics at future meetings. But for land use, let me start with housing. Everybody, Sarah brought up the map there. And you know, we've heard from folks that they want to see more affordable housing, more housing for folks, seniors, so they can age in place. So again, looking now and into the future, what types of housing do folks want to see in North Attleboro, and where would you like to see it?
Lyle has his hand raised.
Yes, Lyle.
If I could just start off, part of what I worry about is housing and it's part of my responsibility. And I've been attending a lot of webinars that are discussing what's going to happen post-pandemic regarding housing, amongst other things. And the clear messages are that the sweet spot for commercial real estate is going to be multifamily rental project development, as opposed to single family. Firstly, secondly, within the space of affordable housing, the senior housing occupancy rate, if that makes sense, nationwide is about 65%. And the feeling is that the construction of senior affordable housing is saturated, and most developers are staying away from it. In a micro sense, in our area, there's a huge senior project planned for the old country club up in Plainville. So if, you know, when we talk to developers, most of what we're talking about is workforce level affordable housing, not senior housing. As I said, because the market seems to be saturated.
That's good. That's good information. Lyle, thank you. Yeah, that, Plainville could have something going up there. Those things, it looks like it's going to happen, not definitive. It's also, as Sarah's pointing out in the map, it's right on the North Attleboro town line. But for folks who wanted to stay in North Attleboro, are there enough options in that area? Or do you want to see more single family housing, and where would you like to see it? Gonna open up the floor to to folks. If you'd like to talk about housing, where would you like to see it? What types, and what type of housing do you think the town will need in 10 years?
So Darius Gregory again,
Yes.
jumping in. So one of the things that I'm passionate about is, and it's no secret, is affordable housing. In terms of location and its orientation and within town, and as to where that is not really significant to me. I would kind of leave that to the professionals to kind of figure out what makes the most sense in terms of location. But what is important to me is who the affordable housing is meant to serve. So, I see a lot of communities that do affordable housing, but there's not something specific for this population, that being veterans. There's a huge population and they have unique financing opportunities as well, where if we catered to that demographic and found a place in town, that would potentially bring in new people that would take advantage of that. And then also the senior housing is important, but Lyle does raise a good point from the developer standpoint, where I won't say that it's saturated, but I do think that it's something where if you're going to do affordable housing, why would I want to cast a small net when I could keep it open to multiple people, so I can ensure that at the end of the day, I don't want to have something that's been permitted and it's very specific to 55 plus, and I just don't have a lot of folks taking advantage of that. Whereas if it's affordable, and as long as you qualify, I don't care if you're a veteran, if you're old, young, or if you're middle class and your income qualifies, then you could potentially move all the units. So I would like to see some of those specific for 55 plus. And that's basically my piece on the affordable housing. But in terms of where it is in town, I don't think that's really important to me.
Okay. Thanks, Darius. Yeah, Lyle?
Yeah, I would ask folks that are interested enough in this meeting to consider the possibility of killing two birds with one stone and creating some sort of housing at the mall.
Right. Great idea.
And we'd like to turn the mall. Well, the people managing the receivership would like to turn it into a multi-use facility. What they desperately need is foot traffic, and there are vacant spaces over there, and certainly that or in the south parking lot where some kind of affordable housing could be developed, and we'd automatically have an audience or a market or a ready-made group of shoppers waiting to go into the mall to do their business. So it's something that we're actively considering.
And I'd like to just note for everybody who's here, this is a visioning exercise. I mean, we can talk about individual locations. We can talk about, areas generally, because you're visioning. Could you imagine, housing on Route 1 generally, like reusing the mall, reusing retail spaces as housing, or, 152? Those are the kind of questions that we're asking at this point. Like, what can you imagine? Would that be appropriate for North Attleboro, or does that seem like it wouldn't fit there? Are there things that you've seen elsewhere that you're like, we should bring that to North Attleboro? I was in, somewhere on vacation and I saw this incredible multi-use area, and that's what we want to see. Those are the type of things we want to know if the community has a desire to see, and we can put that on this map. We can put it in our notes. And so that's kind of what the conversation is trying to get at. So feel free to throw out anything, absolutely any crazy idea that you have, throw it at us. We're going to put it on the map. And if we hear a lot of that, then that will make the rules, regulations to kind of support that. We'll try to look out for grants and things like that. That's what we're looking for tonight. So please feel free, shout out anything you want.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Jen. Yes, that's what we're looking for. Examples of things you've seen on vacation. Everybody goes on a certain area. Oh, I've been to Rockport. I like what it looks like. Or I've been to Portland, Maine, and I like what that looks like. Or Freeport, or wherever. Those are the type of comments we're looking for. Lisa, yes?
Oh, it seems like Route 1 would be a perfect place to put housing, because I think that the trend is away from a lot of these, big box stores and, some of these facilities there. But I think that, if we envision low income housing, I'd also like to have it be really inviting and have spaces for people who live in those housing units to have outdoor space, or fire pits, or things that are attractive to people doing rentals.
Thank you. Got two more people. Let's see, folks raising their hand. Lisa?
I think the first was Daniel.
Daniel, sorry.
Do you have the current numbers from chapter 40B percentage housing in North Attleboro?
Daniel, I don't think we can hear you too well. Can anybody hear?
I heard something along the lines of the current percentage of the Chapter 40B housing. I'm guessing the subsidized housing inventory numbers. Is that right, Daniel?
Lyle, are we at 3.5%?
We're currently at 3.5%.
Yeah.
And the theoretical mandate from the state is to get 10, have a plan to get there.
Yeah, and as part of this, as part of the master plan, we'll be talking about housing, but also we'll be doing a housing production plan that really focuses on trying to get that town, increase that amount of affordable housing. And affordable housing is not low income. It's, can be low income housing, but it's for a certain percentage of folks making what they call 80% of the area median income, which North Attleboro is about $86,000. So
Right.
80% of that, that's kind of the focus of affordable housing. It can go lower than that, obviously, as well. But, for a family of four, that's about $70,000. Folks who are making about $70,000. So just to keep that in mind, we're going to have a workshop focused on affordable housing next month, and we'll get really into the nuts and bolts. Julia?
Oh, that was just going to be my comment, that low income housing is a lot different animal than affordable or housing. So people tend to get those confused, and then they think, oh, it's going to be a housing project, which it's really not. It's just a housing that's more affordable for the average person who's not making, $150,000 a year.
Sure, just wanted to.
But my other question was, so if we want to attract building affordable housing and attract more families to North Attleboro, we're going to address the schools and the capacity of the schools. And is that a whole different thing? Is that a whole different animal?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we'll talk about that. We're going to have that workshop next week. But again, we're trying to, kind of keep it high level at this point in time. You know, what types of housing you'd like to see, where would you like to see it, that type of thing. So again, trying to keep that higher vision, of what we'll get into the nuts and bolts of especially housing, because it is complex in the separate plan. But it'll be definitely mentioned in this plan. But again, that higher view. What would you like to see? What types of development? What types of housing?
I'd like to know, just in general for people, any projects that requires large projects, new construction, those would require site plan review. And as part of that, all the departments are notified. And so as part of those, if there's fire concerns, if there's concerns for schools, those departments can comment on that. So that will be through that process, the public process.
Thank you.
Thanks, Julia.
Eric, if I could just make a comment.
Hold on. Hold on, Lyle. I just wanted to, Sandra.
Okay. I'm a big proponent of using the mall as multi-functional space. Turning it into affordable housing or senior housing. However, it's with even some commercial smaller units, maybe on the first floor or market, something that if people are living there have a direct advantage to basically your your living aspects. Excuse me, I just want to hang up on this phone.
Sure.
Such as, you know, a supermarket, hair salons, that type of thing. Basic living areas that are incorporated into that area for that kind of a development.
Thank you. Mike Mullen, I see you have your hand raised.
Yes, how you doing?
Hi, thanks for coming.
You're welcome. Thanks for hosting us. One of the things that I've noticed as I travel in this country and out of this country is a growing kind of a change in the dynamic of the public-private partnership. Thinking much more globally in the generic sense that when you're planning, you avoid, and Lyle, you can speak to this, that you want to avoid as a community the pitfalls of missing paradigm changes. And I think that's kind of what I'm taking from this meeting, that we need to, I'm laying back and just catching the overall intent of the meeting and the planning process that you guys are focusing on tonight. It would seem to me that we have to focus on that partnership between the private and the public sectors to foster that, to become much more dynamic in our planning process as we go forward throughout time, and try to instill that in our planning process. So I just wanted to offer that for what it's worth.
I should note that, well, we might not be taking a note on everything that's everybody's saying. This is being recorded, and I see Jed furiously writing notes there, as am I and some of the other team members. So just because it's not on the map doesn't mean it's not being recorded. So we'll take the comments into consideration. The map is a helpful tool if you'd like to use it, though. Anybody else have any comments on housing? We can skip around from economic development and housing, land use. I see Marie is patiently waiting.
I just wanted to follow up on what Lisa said a short time ago about making sure that an area is attractive. I brought it up at one of the other meetings that we had. I didn't visit the place, but I saw it in a planning journal. I believe it was a project out in the Midwest somewhere, but it must have been a fairly substantial piece of property, but they had it divided into basically 3 different sections. A section of apartments that were for young professionals, people starting out. Then there was a different type of housing that was more of a townhouse, condo sort of thing for young families. And then there was another section that was specifically designed for senior citizens. And in and amongst the property were walking trails, playgrounds. There was an area where there were shops and cafes, coffee places, and plenty of places to make the area attractive, where they didn't have a grocery store, but it had like I'll say like a 7-Eleven kind of place. So people would leave to go to a big grocery store, to go to the mall or whatever, but the basics for what you might want on a daily basis, you could find within your own area, and it was very attractive. And one person said, well, I'm going to start here in the apartments, and I plan on staying here for forever because I like it here.
Sure, that's great.
Yeah.
A mix of uses.
Yeah.
To it can follow you throughout your life. You can start there, and live there and have all the amenities within walking distance. We had, again, we're going to talk about land use, housing, ED. We had somebody who wanted to shift the topic over to economic development, and Timothy O'Clair. Did you have a comment on regards to economic development? You can unmute yourself. And thanks for coming, Timothy. Sorry. There you go.
Right. I just wanted to kind of chime in real quick. My business partner, John Connolly, and myself are looking to start a business right in downtown. And I believe that John had spoken with Lyle Perney in the past. And I'm just looking to see I believe there's some grants out there for businesses to kind of, get up and running, but it sounds like a lot of those grants are kind of reserved for businesses that are already established. We're kind of a startup, so I don't know if there's something that the town can provide for us to get our startup up and going.
What it's allowed that the conversation with John was about grants and low interest loans. And after I understood your business model, I sent it to Mass Development, which is a quasi-government organization that's in the business of providing assistance to small businesses. And what came back from Mass Development was, and that's a state agency, what came back was that the business has to be established for 2 years before they'll consider grants. But there's another organization, SEED, Southeastern Economic Division, I think it is. They're in Taunton, and they're a nonprofit, and they provide very low interest microloans to startups, and that's where I directed John. So I'm continuing to search for grants. Some of the grants tend to be industry specific. I haven't found any yet for your industry, but so it's we're considering a rating and innovation center in one of the buildings in town. But if in fact that happens, then the town would provide 50% of the overhead expense coverage, and Mass Development would cover the other 50%. But a grant cycle that opens in June, and we don't know yet whether or not we'll get the award because we haven't applied for the grant.
Another opportunity you might want to look into, and I don't know if it covers this area of the state, is E for All. It's literally the letter E for all, and it's a program that's an accelerator program for small businesses. You can apply and you get mentorships depending on where your business is at. But I'd look into that. I don't know what your business is, and if you're at a point where you're really a startup kind of point, you might want to look for that. That's kind of a small business support organization. But I don't know if it covers this part of the state.
Great, hopefully that answered your question. You're welcome. In regards to the downtown, we've heard from the surveys in the last workshop a lot of the focus on the downtown. What do you envision the downtown looking like in 10 years, or any other areas in town, down by the mall? We've talked about that, or over by 152. That seems to be an area that might be right for development over near Plainville. Again, no wrong answers here. Everything's open for discussion. Lisa, do you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I have a out of the box kind of idea is, with global warming and problems with growing food, I've seen a lot of efforts to grow food indoors. And there's a company called App Harvest that has had a great deal of success with that. And it's also a really good company where it pays well, the employees have a stake in the company. But it might be something kind of out of the box to think of with some of the unused buildings. And I think, maybe unfortunately down the road, we'll have some more empty sites that we have to think about those kinds of things. But that might be something that we could look into.
Yeah, it looks like the big box stores, as evidenced by the mall and these larger Macy's and those things like that. We're going to have an abundance of these large box stores, and what do you do with them?
And maybe the car dealerships are next because people are buying their cars online as well. So
they deliver them to your house. Yeah. Darius likes that. Or did you have a question, Darius? I'm sorry.
Well, I like that, and then I do have something else.
Okay.
So in terms of the downtown North Attleboro, I think it kind of goes back to the focus of how do we make that a destination? I mean, as of right now, I don't think people are migrating to want to get downtown just because it really does look, unfortunately, I hate to use this language, but depressed. I mean, that's the feeling and the vibe that you get. Although there are some really vibrant, great businesses that I like to patronize. It's hard to, try to advocate to folks that are in other communities. Hey, come on down to North Attleboro. Let's go downtown. They're like, why would I do that when I could go to 5 other places, Providence being one? So I think if I see a very clear connection to Federal Hill, and how do we create that vibe similar to Providence, where, there's the live music, there's people that are able to go in and out of stores, and people are eating and dining outside. Like, I think, and kind of embrace the character of North Attleboro. I'm not saying, change it. I think I like the brick, fronts that are there, just maybe dress them up a little bit. And I don't think it's a lot of heavy lifting, but there may be some changes internally to allow businesses to be able to do the live music thing. Maybe changing some hours as well, to allow folks to, want to open up businesses or even patronize the ones that we have that are downtown.
Yeah, great
Awesome.
idea.
If I could just.
Hold on, Lyle. I wanted to let,
Okay.
I'm sorry, I wanted to let Annie Slobogin speak. We haven't heard from her yet. Yeah. I can't hear you, Annie.
There it goes. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Perfecto. So, although I agree with Darius, downtown should be our destination. I feel like if it's a destination, it's going to only ripple out. I know Lyle's heard me say it a million times. I think, Eric, you've heard me say it a million times as well. But where I disagree is that, yes, there are some major businesses. We need to get more businesses downtown. We have some great restaurants. We have some great businesses down there. We are seeing an increase of people coming down. What I always say is that currently downtown feels like the Radiator Springs of North Attleboro. And if anyone's familiar with the Cars reference, they would understand that. Where you have Route 1 and you had that mall going in the late 80s, early 90s, and people just kind of forgot about us. So therefore, we've talked about this, creating some kind of awareness to bring people to downtown is only going to help that more. And that's wayfinder signage, that's signage on bookends on either side, signage on Route 1, make it more of an appearance. Because to be honest, we have live music downtown. We have live music every summer for free to the community from the North Attleboro Cultural Council. But again, it's that awareness. If we have people that know that downtown exists, they'll come down more often, and we need that. So I feel like the help with a lot of the things that we're doing, bringing more business downtown, doing these things would be great. But it's, again, creating that awareness through signage and word of mouth and things like that.
Great. Thank you. Timothy, did you have another comment?
Just real quickly, the business I was talking about earlier, it's actually 33 Elm Street. We are we're in the process of purchasing the location, and we're looking to put in a small craft brewery at that location. Obviously, we still got to clear a lot of hurdles before we can get to that point, but I think, a business of that nature tends to attract a lot of outside people to the downtown area. And I think that could potentially help to, bring a lot of people into the area. But one thing I was contemplating, I know that last summer, I think the Downtown Associates were considering doing some sort of shutdown of East Washington and allowing restaurants to kind of bring tables outside, almost like a walking pedestrian type street. And I think something like that, either for a portion of the year or just, for maybe 1 week out of the year, I mean, even if it's just like one weekend out of the year, we could, create like a downtown festival of sorts would actually bring in quite a lot of attraction to the area.
Great comment. I see Annie having some, Daniel, Mr. Knight, Daniel Knight.
Microphone.
I can hear you a little bit. It's kind of tough.
I'd like to know, kind of tying in with what you're talking about with the downtown businesses, have you been getting input from the downtown associates as a group and individual businesses as to what their vision for the type of housing in North Attleboro that would benefit them, as well as their vision for what would ultimately benefit them as a result of the mall?
Okay, Daniel, I think I made out some of it. I'll try to repeat it. You can tell me if I'm off base here. It says, have you reached out to the Downtown Associates of North Attleboro in regards to economic development and the development of housing that would benefit businesses that belong to that organization? Is that kind of what you said? Okay. We have reached out to the folks at Dana to help spread the word about this, about the thing, and invite everybody, to come here tonight. Hopefully, we'll be reaching out to a bunch of different boards and committees and businesses groups with the help of town staff and trying to get feedback from those groups and folks in the near future. I appreciate them helping us spread the word about this. I see Annie waving your hand virtually, digitally. Matt, Annie, I'll let you guys pick.
I'm going to go first, Matt. So to answer Timothy's question, I think that's a great idea. And to be honest, we're looking at doing a couple of things. One of which is bringing a farmer's market to downtown, which would be great to have your table there to be samples and stuff. And then we're also looking in September to do a block party and bring that back, which would have the closure of the street. Earlier last year, we looked at closing the street to help the restaurants with outdoor dining. The issue is that 75% of the businesses downtown are actually not restaurants, but actually literally businesses that are open at a certain time period. And to close that street was actually going to hurt their businesses. We're still looking at different ways of which we could do that. That's why outdoor dining on the sidewalks and then into the street a little bit was awarded, and we were able to do that, and we'll continue to do that. But I love that thinking, and I'd love to reach out with you and talk to you more about that. And Daniel, in regards to your question, Dana itself is a community group. There are a couple of businesses on there, but there's actually a downtown North Attleboro business group. That's the majority of the downtown businesses we meet, we discuss, and we have been actually talking a lot about the future. And as I'm a member of the group, I've been an advocate working very closely with Eric and Lyle and other things with grants and opportunities that we can do downtown. And the businesses want to be very involved. They are very involved, and they're hoping that the community can help as well.
Matt, did you have something? And then I see Sandra with their hand raised. This is great. Matt, did you have something? I'm sorry.
Yeah, if I may, yeah. Just going back to Darius and Timothy, actually, I own a business in downtown, and we've been there for over 12 years. And I totally applaud outside the box thinking. I think that what you need to do, Timothy, if you and your business partner are planning on opening downtown, come down, meet me, my wife, any other businesses, and get part of the group that we're part of, which actually business owners collaborating. Darius's description of the downtown, I think he might have said depressed. I've been in business there for over 12 years. I think we've got to be careful of, the optics on that, saying that depressed. I get that could be a worst case scenario, but I've been doing nothing for 12 and a half years, but pushing downtown in a positive light. And it's a viable place to do business. So I think we got to be careful. I think we have to make sure that we post it, spin it in a positive light as much as we possibly can. There are things that we can do better. And I like the outside of the box thinking. So anything that we can do, as far as Darius said, Federal Hill kind of style. My wife has been pushing some really great ideas with bringing lights over the downtown street, stuff like that, outside seating. Think about it. I mean, it's more of a creative collaboration. And I'm all for it, but I think we have to be careful with how we spin the optics. Thanks, Darius.
Obviously, I have to address Matt with that one. Yeah, so first and foremost, I was very conscious of not wanting to use that word. I think I prefaced before I said that. Because I know obviously a lot of folks are business owners and they're very much connected, as am I, being relatively new to the town. But this is, sometimes you got to hear it. And this is coming from folks that aren't integrated into North Attleboro's culture, but these are people that would patronize, you know, the businesses that are there. And these are, you know, that's things that I've heard from them. So I think it's, you know, I can sell it in a way, and have sold it in a way, but it is good to be grounded, just to kind of get people that don't live here in North Attleboro, what do they think about it? What do they think about the downtown? The folks that don't have businesses, what is their perception? And I think, like your wife said, you know, through awareness, through signage, through, you know, whatever the campaign is, to kind of say, hey, not only is North Attleboro up and coming, but these are the things that we're doing actively, and these are the changes from maybe the last time that you visited. But yeah, so I do agree, and if I did offend anybody, you know, my apologies. I just wanted to give it to folks the way that I hear from other people.
Let me unmute myself. Sandra, you had your hand raised. I see Lyle and Marie.
Yeah, yes, and I mean, I am all for expanding and creating and beautifying the center of North Attleboro, but I think first you need to find parking. There are two areas that could be parking areas. One was where the burned out building was, that sits with gravel on it and fenced in. The other is behind the stores on the east side of town. I know that there was talk a while ago about building a parking garage there, but it's very difficult to get down there and park. So that's one thought that I feel is important.
It's great. Timothy, were you clapping or raising your hand?
No,
Here.
I was just I was clapping on his comments because one of the hurdles at the location we're looking to move into is the parking situation, and I think more public parking in downtown can only benefit the businesses down there. I believe at one time the town was actually looking into making East Washington a one-way street and putting in diagonal parking. I don't know if that's something that's still on the table.
I don't know off the top of my head. Reed's had her hand raised for a while. Yes.
It wasn't, Tim, it wasn't East Washington Street, which is Route 1. It was North Washington Street, you know, that goes through downtown. Yes. You know, that was talked about a while ago, and I imagine that it will come up and circulate around. And yes, the town has been looking for a long time to improve the parking, as Sandra said, behind the stores on the east side of North Washington Street. But the thing that I would say is that the areas that you're talking about are all private property. So that requires either the town working out an arrangement with the property owners, which they tried a few years ago and failed because one of the property owners didn't want to do it. So it's going to take a lot of cooperation, I think, and a lot of conversations to make some of those things happen. I also wanted to go back to the general comment about downtown. There are two organizations, Dana and then the Downtown Business Association, and I personally would like to see them work together. Dana's been around for a long time and has sponsored many activities. I kind of see downtown North Attleboro as having gone through a cycle. When I first moved here, and when I used to come here when I was a little girl, which was a long time ago, there were shops like Vigorito's, Miller's Department Store, Orange Brothers. There were a lot of people did most of their shopping for clothes, furniture, all kinds of things right on downtown. We used to have festivals, holiday specials downtown where downtown was all decorated, and the businesses would all run specials, and it would be on a Thursday night, and people were everywhere doing their Christmas shopping. So then the mall went in, and you know, that sort of cycled down, and now to me it seems like it's cycling back up again. So I would really like to see an effort for the property owners in downtown as well as the business owners to come and work together with the town once we get a vision in place, to try and see what we can all do working together to make that happen.
Thanks, Marie. Mike Mullen, get your hand raised.
I did, thank you. I agree with Marie on that. And I go back to the public-private partnership. A lot of good points made by Darius and Matt and Andrea, I think. Small businesses, if you look at historically what Marie was describing, are very organic. And it tends to be dynamic. We lost control of the process, if you will, by shifting, again, a paradigm shift that we succumb to, if you will, not to be negative. And I think we need to just remember where that comes from. You know, that people as human beings, we enjoy the music and the living part of a community. And I think that's the kind of takeaway that you've got to search for in planning. And that's, what are your attributes? You can do some global thinking. I mean, remember that Walt Disney World was built in a swamp. Downtown Providence was a train station before it became the water park. So some, grand thought process, and I'm like Matt with this, with regards to this, you got to be willing to dream, but you also have to be willing to make it a reality, and you have to live in the interim. Some of those dreams and plans took lifetimes, but if you move towards that and look at the attributes of a community, we have the waterway that comes down through the center of North Attleboro. I've grown up here and been here my whole life. If you strip it down and start over, do a stand down, if you will, from a military terminology, and look at this geographically and look at some of the aspects of this community, you could develop a really interesting grand plan. And Marie can speak to this because we've talked about this for years, where you could actually redevelop and accentuate what you have, thinking organically with the businesses, because it's private business that will be working in partnership with the town of North Attleboro in the long run. And I think that's the kind of the secret within this discussion, that we've always had that. We've just not focused on that. So I think we need to get back to that focus of the organics between the community public and the community private, and making sure that both know that they're symbiotic with each other. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. That was great. Looking at the grand vision, and to say, as a planner, we work in 27 cities and towns, and North Attleboro has definitely a lot of solid attributes in a downtown. A lot of towns don't have a traditional downtown. North Attleboro does, so it's a really great asset to the community. Julia, did you have your hand up?
Eric, could I just follow up on what Mike said? I mean, so I don't forget it, because I will. Mike is right. Over the years, we've come up, not Mike and me, but various groups of people have come up with really great ideas to revitalize various sections of downtown. He's talking about the 10 Mile River and plans that we had to do some work along there to open it up. We were going to put in a skating area near Kwan's Kitchen, and we'd worked out an arrangement with the people who own that property. We had all kinds of things in the works, and there have been in other places in town. To be honest with you, most of them hit the wall when it came down to funding, because we were doing them at a time when the town was not doing particularly well. We're in a much better financial position now than we were back in the early 2000s, or, first decade of the 2000s. So I think it might not be a bad idea for some of the people who were part of those discussions to sit down and make a list of them, because they were good ideas at the time, and I think some of them are probably still relevant, that would really make not just North and South Washington Street, but extending it out to East Washington Street and down Route 1, revitalizing some of those areas would make it an even more attractive area for people to come to. But we can never forget what Sandra said. For whatever we're doing, we need parking. But I would like to offer that up. I'm willing to reach out to some of those old townies to see if they can still put together some discussion points of ideas that have been brought up in the past but ended because of money.
Thanks, Marie. Julia, did you have, and then Sandra, I see you. Julia, did you have a comment? You have to unmute yourself. Okay. Well, we'll go to Sandra.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry.
This is probably one of those dumb ideas, but when you said think out of the box, I go away every summer, and where I go, the downtown is so vibrant, but there's absolutely no parking. So they run a trolley that makes a continuous loop, like Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays from like, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday daytime into the night, and Thursdays from like 4 to 10. And you park away, in a parking lot like at Shaw's, and it just runs you downtown until you're ready to go, and then back up, and it's like $1.
Yeah. Would you mind asking me where this is?
Yes, it's on the Vineyard.
Okay. No, that's fine.
So, we park, even though we're residents, we park way up at the Triangle, and we hop on the trolley, and it's an open air trolley. We pay $1. We go downtown, we stay until we're done, and then we hop on the trolley and go back home. And we've done that since I was a kid. Now I'm a grown up, but that's what they run to keep the pedestrians as much as they can, because they have literally no parking in everyone's probably been there, but that's how they keep their people getting there.
And Jed had a comment. Jed, our colleague, my colleague from Serpent, Plymouth has that as well. The town of Plymouth, obviously it's a vibrant waterfront, and there's a lot of stuff going on there, but they do have that, so it's not totally unheard of. And that's within the relative region, they have a transit service that does the same type of a thing.
Right. Obviously, in the winter it would be kind of ridiculous, but I'm just saying in the in the summer when we're trying to attract people to the downtown concerts. And to take, if they're going to be, I think it's a kind of a neat idea, even if they just did it, a few weeks out of the summer to try and drive business downtown.
Those are great ideas that we're kind of, that we're looking for as part of the plan. Is we can explore them further, just, seeing what people think. Sandra, if you had a comment, and then we're going to shift it and go back to housing. We have a survey we're going to talk about, but Sandra?
Okay, just one quick one, and maybe it's time to revisit some of the private people that were contacted in regards to parking garages or purchasing the property. They may be of a different mindset now. We don't know unless we ask.
I just want to recognize that I love all these out of the box ideas for parking, because a downtown in most communities, that parking is an issue, and there has to be creative solutions. So, whether that's redoing the roadways and different designs, or looking at opportunities with public-private partnerships for using the lots or existing lots, or if it's like Julia said, unique ways where, when we have those crush of more people downtown, what are ways to move them from one place where we have parking to a place where we don't. So these are really great ideas, and I'm just so glad to be hearing them from the community, because you don't always hear that. These are great.
Did anybody else have a economic development or housing or land use comment? We do want to respect everybody's time and try to get everyone out at 8. Again, we're more than happy to take comments offline and talk over the phone if you have anything else to, further to say about any of these topics. If not, I'm gonna hand it off to my colleague Taylor Perez, who's going to talk about housing in a housing survey that we developed. So I'm gonna hand it off to Taylor.
Sure. Let me share my screen just to make sure folks can see it. Can everyone see that? Good. Awesome. All right. So this is kind of a lead into our housing production plan workshop that we're going to be having at the end of May. I did plug that in the chat earlier. So again, for the folks who are interested in that, we'd love to see you there. A date will be coming hopefully soon. So we'll be getting that out on Facebook and through email. So just keep an eye out for that. But as part of this kind of broader overarching workshop, what we wanted to do was just kind of get the temperature on what folks think that the housing stock in North Attleboro should look like in the future. And the way in which we've done this is we wanted to address two kind of major themes when it comes to housing, which is how dense is the housing and how diverse is the housing stock. So we're thinking density in terms of like units per unit area, and then diversity in terms of different types of housing. So you'll see single family mixes, condominiums, mobile homes, small multifamily, large apartments, kind of getting at that. And so what we've done here is we have this survey, and it's a ranking exercise. Let me post this in the chat as well, just so folks, if you're interested in taking it, you can actually take it now. Just give me 1 second.
And this will be, again, on the website where folks can partake in this after the meeting. If you'd like to do it now,
Yes.
great. If you'd like to do it afterwards, that's fine as well. Taylor's
Yeah.
going to kind of run through it for you.
Yeah, we'll be sharing this on our website, on Facebook, through email, all the general kind of lines of communication. We'll make sure we get it to you. But so what this is we've kind of given some examples of the typical types of uses or housing types that we're thinking of here. And then just a quick legend to explain some of these maps. And so what this is it's a series of 5 different maps. You'll see here, for example, we have this first one, low density, medium diversity. So this is kind of getting at, what do you want the housing stock in North Attleboro to be larger lots, less dense, more single family? And then we kind of get into this other, we have medium density, low diversity. So in the idea, do you want a lot of single family, somewhat dense, et cetera. And then, it just works its way down. You see more dense things, and then we get to these very dense situations with a lot of diverse housing options. And so all we ask you to do is just take this quick survey. And then if you click on this little drop-down link right here, you can rank them. And so we're looking at where 1 is most desirable and 5 is least desirable. So essentially all you have to do is go take a look at the maps, look at these pie charts to kind of get an idea of what the housing stock looks like, and then just rank them. So hopefully that's pretty straightforward. If anyone has any questions, again, like I'm here right now, you can let me know. You can also just shoot me an email. But does that make sense to everyone? Is that clear? Awesome. So yeah, we just wanted to share this with you again. You don't have to take it now. You can if you'd like while we're here and we're just talking about it. If not, we just encourage you to take it when you can. It's probably going to take you, 2 minutes. And then we also encourage if you don't mind sharing it with others who potentially couldn't make it tonight. So we just wanted to kind of let you know that that's another exercise that we're having with this workshop.
Thanks, Taylor.
For sure.
Yeah, and again, as Taylor said, we're gonna have a housing stakeholders meeting next month. We'll get that word out soon, and we'll be talking really in depth about housing and the different types, and we'll be referencing that and the conversations that we've had this week. Marie, did you have a question? And
Actually, I was just gonna make a comment. Jen and I have been talking about various stakeholder groups in terms of different aspects of the master plan and the information we're trying to get. And obviously one of them clearly is people who are interested in downtown. And so I would like to offer up, I'm hoping Jen will nod, that anyone who's interested in our putting together a meeting with people associated with downtown so that we can continue the discussion of what you'd like to see happen there and things that you think the town can do to help to make that happen. Anything that as Julia indicated, where she'd been, sometimes that's all we need to do is hear an idea from somebody and then start taking a look at what we can do to make it happen. So you could email either Jen, jcarloni@nattleboro.com, or me at mclarner@nattleboro.com. And let us know you're interested in doing that. We're hoping to do a few different stakeholder groups to try and pick up as much information as we can about the downtown area, about housing, about economic development, about the industries you'd like to see in town, about zoning. Are you interested in seeing mixed use zoning, which might be retail or whatever on the bottom floor, apartments or condos upstairs, or in a general district like I described earlier? We were talking the other night about the development up Route 1 in Rentham, just past 495, where you have senior citizen housing, you have apartments, you have restaurants, you have a grocery store, you've got storage areas. What are you interested in seeing? So if you want to participate in any of those kinds of stakeholder groups, if you could just email Jen or me and let us know, and we'll put them together. Thank you. And thank you all so much for coming tonight, giving us your ideas and taking the time to spend with this. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Marie. Darius, did you have your hand up? You were clapping, were you applauding, or did you want to make a point?
I wanted to say something, but I just looked at the time, it's 7:56, so I think folks are about ready to wrap it up at 8. So I'll be at the next meeting that's in regard to housing, so I could probably bring it up then.
Okay, and in the meantime, if you want to reach out to any one of us, feel free. More than happy to talk. I see Laurel's hand raised.
No, not me. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were waving your hand.
No.
I'm looking at
Thanks.
everybody. I'm trying to make sure I don't miss anybody. Did anybody else have any questions or comments or ideas before we leave this evening?
Jen, did you want to, yeah, why don't you give us a little wrap up?
I just wanted to wait to see if anybody else had anything to say. But I do want to thank everybody for this evening. And like Marie said, we do need input. And I love the downtown discussion, and it's actually very topical as we are looking at using some of the MassWorks money to do some placemaking stuff down there. So if anybody has downtown ideas, concepts, reach out to us. I mean, we're obviously aware that, that the gateways into the downtown are important to identify the signage, the wayfinding, getting people to parking areas. Those are all important. So these are great conversations that we need to continue. Other suggestions, I heard a lot about these festivals and stuff. I'm coming from New Bedford. We have a very dense downtown area. A major cultural revolution happened there. And we have a thing called AHA that happened every once a month. And that was that public-private partnership that a lot of people are talking about. Other downtown areas have these too. But those, as a regular basis, they had a once a month kind of arts and culture event. So same thing, that's what I'm hearing this evening from many people, that whole public-private partnership, how can we make that work, and getting all that together. So I think these are great ideas, and I think it's a great conversation, and I would love to get together a stakeholder committee, or just even if you just want to shoot all your ideas at us, we'll take everything that you got, feel free to send those to us. And then again, also we're talking about economic development. We've been talking about here, and I know a lot of these conversations have been ongoing in council. So, we are going to have to be looking at zoning. Any big visions, these are informing what our zoning regulations will do. And again, same thing with that public-private partnerships. If you have the zoning that supports what the desired outcomes are, you can incentivize developers to come in. You can, your zoning tells them what the vision for the community is, and that's why we need to hear it from you. And so I really appreciate everybody coming tonight and what they're said, and all the ideas, they help us develop the zoning that helps inform and make things possible. And so that's kind of the thing here, and that's that vision, and that's, it gets beyond just funding and all of that. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, as well, on behalf of the team here at SERPED in North Attleboro. Appreciate you taking time out of your an hour and a half out of your day. You might have been on Zoom all day or sitting in front of your computer like I have, but we do appreciate you taking the time. We hope to see you at future events. We have a Facebook page and website. Please visit, share it with your friends, colleagues, neighbors, and have them be part of the conversation. And we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Good
Night,
evening.
everyone. Thank
Good night.
you.
Thank you.